You may have known my mom, Catherine Chang, as Haha. Perhaps it was Mama. A lucky group of 8 of you only have known her as Polo. And still others of you knew her as Miss Catherine or Mrs. Chang. We are here to pay homage to a woman who lived a tremendously rich life. It will be impossible to adequately capture all of my mother's life and the impact it's made on me. Instead, I'll tell you a few stories so that you may leave here today with more familiarity with the person who came into your life at some point to leave a lasting mark upon you. It's a humbling task to try and pay tribute to someone as uniquely amazing as Mom. My hope is that in sharing some of these memories, I achieve a tiny part of that goal. Those friends who knew her as Haha or Tsen Mama reflect on someone who was full of life, laughter, and love. She celebrated your joys and mourned your losses right alongside you. She gave and gave of herself to friends. I can remember growing up and having more uncles and aunties in our home for dinner at least once a week and usually during both weekend nights. She and our father helped throw more wedding receptions, Thanksgiving dinners, and New Year's Eves for students in our home than I can even recall. She was unequivocally generous and compassionate, and she cherished friendship. As Popo, or Grandma, she was often more like a big kid than a granny. She could always be counted on to care for, laugh with, and play like a kid with each of you. She entertained and comforted all of you at some point in your lives, and she adored the 8 of you more than anything in the world. She is single-handedly responsible for forwarding so many timeouts, as she came to your aid quite often, as grandmas are apt to do. She said that being a grandparent was life's ultimate fulfillment. Watching and hearing of your accomplishments gave her unequaled joy. And as our mama, she embodied comfort and safety for the 4 of us. From washing our hair as kids to tucking us into bed and making comfort food when we were sick, she had the absolute perfect touch. When we were in the comforting gaze, touch, or counsel of Mama, we were home, even when we weren't. As both Haha and then Mama to our father, she was partner and soulmate. A lifelong teammate through thick and thin, she often said that her life's work was to support our Baba in his life's work. I think he'd agree that neither he nor we would be the people we are without her support and influence. He's the boss at work, I'm the boss at home, she'd always say. 4 of us have had front row seats to one of the greatest love stories of all time. Mama was fearless and wise. She was reflective and spiritual, strong and stubborn, funny and radiant, and boy, was she savvy. Across hundreds or even thousands of miles, she could tell in a second on the phone what type of mood we were in. She was a pro. We've learned so much from her. We'll continue to learn from her lessons and hope to be half the mom she was. As for Miss Catherine, you might have met her later in life, and she was dealt an unlucky hand for the first time with her health. Still, she never failed to enjoy or entertain, even in her weakest or befuddled moments. She might have gifted you clothes at some time, or put you in what she thought was your place. But she was filled with gratitude for kind and loving words and hands. You filled a very special place in her heart. Regardless of what you may have called her, there was one word that perfectly captures my mom, how she was and how she lived her life. Vibrant. Mama approached everything in life with passion. She never went about anything half-heartedly, staying active for 80-plus years. She lived for our father, for the 4 of us, and later for her grandchildren, and held out long enough to help welcome her 8th grandbaby to this world. Every year on my birthday, I wake up and call Mama to thank her for having me. In Chinese, it's Mama 谢谢你把我生出来. You see, Mama had me later in life, and everyone told her it might be risky, which didn't prove true until I was in my teens. At the time, having a baby so late in life was unheard of, stuff with record books, where friends put their phones down roaring with laughter when they heard of the news after 8 years. And yet she took the risk, as she often did, and had another child at 35. As for my birthday call, she always responded, I thank God we had you, I couldn't have imagined life without you. That is precisely how I feel today about her. I cannot imagine having anyone else for a mother. I consider myself so blessed. She was generous and kind. She was ridiculously strict, independent yet overprotective, so much that we lovingly called her chicken mother. One example was that we knew it would be impossible for her to teach any of us to drive, and so it tasked all the daddy She'd become a nervous wreck just talking about us getting us out to an empty parking lot to drive around on a Sunday morning. Mama was multi-talented. She could sing, dance, cook like a professional chef, kick a hacky sack longer than most of the teenage boys I grew up with, master exercise classes like aqua aerobics to the point of taking over for her instructor. So like a professional seamstress, even once producing matching loud calico dresses for her and my 3 sisters to wear back on their first trip to Taiwan. See, there are some benefits to being born 8 years later. I mentioned she was fearless. There was nothing she couldn't face except mice. Once when I was young, a mouse got into our garage and she called a friend, Mama, to have her drive 30 minutes across town to help us save us from the tiny mouse. She spent the entire time waiting, frozen in rare inactivity, sitting with her legs up on the couch, even though the mouse was all the way over the garage. If Mama didn't know how to do something, no matter. She learned or taught herself. Our family will fondly remember her self-taught emailing and how adorably entertaining her broken English messages to us were to read. How I wish now that I'd kept more of those precious notes. Until these last few years, she never really stopped. But even as she worked tirelessly between driving us to school, babysitting jobs, music lessons, candy striping, parties, and summer jobs, she managed to not only stop and smell the roses, she taught all of us to stop and appreciate them too. Even during her last year at Barton House, she danced, sang, and attended tea parties with vigor and vim and found so much silver lining in everything. Most of you probably don't know about how my parents met. By now, you may have read that they were separated nearly 4 years before finally getting married just outside of Houston nearly 56 years ago. But nearly 66 years ago, my father found my mother in the kitchen of their residence hall, crying into a giant pot as she didn't know how to prepare rice. I can remember her telling me the story. There was your daddy, tall, dark, and handsome, leaning up against the door frame, smiling at me as I cried. He said, "What's there to cry about? It's just rice." He offered to help take her shift, taught her how to make the rice, and the rest is history. Mama would eventually become an amazing and popular cook. She could throw together a meal for 2 or cook for an entire army, and the food would be equally delicious each and every time. Somehow, she managed to work the room and entertain with laughter and stories, and before you knew it, a seemingly effortless 10-course meal would be on the table. And then the stories and jokes would ensue, often with people staying at the dinner table for hours following the meal, filling the house with roars of laughter or feisty debates. Then there was her layo. She made Chinese hot sauce from scratch, and it was famous for being some of the hottest red pepper oil sauce in the world. Whenever she began making it, the rest of us would leave. The dog would go into hiding. Mama would put on a surgical mask, I'm not exaggerating, open all the windows to the house and get to work. And she didn't just make a jar or 2, she made jars full and then went around town sharing it with friends and family. Mama Cheng's hot sauce, her layo, was and will continue to be world famous as we strap on surgical masks and attempt to continue honoring that legacy. Now, I need to talk about something serious. I need to talk about Mom's sportsmanship. Mama was a horribly sore loser. She hated not winning. She was often known to cry when she lost. So she went to extreme measures to win. Some would call it bending the rules, or perhaps even cheating. Once during a game of Scrabble, after she pretended to drop letters on the floor, I caught her looking at my letters from underneath the glass. She was known for running out of the room if the team she rooted for on TV was losing. She delighted in coaching our boyfriends and husbands in mahjong, pretending to strategize with them while glancing at what tiles we were about to play. Whenever we called her out, she'd laugh that unmistakable laugh, often laughing so hard she turned bright red and someone would have to go and find water. If there was one thing Mama was not shy about, it was giving advice, and it was good advice. There are so many Mama-isms, her words of wisdom. She would say, "Open both eyes before you marry, open them wide, and once you're married, close one eye." In China, the practice of shopping for sons-in-law is to sit down and have them play a game of mahjong with you. In her book, True Colors are quickly revealed on the card table. In America, she adapted the custom to driving with her daughter's suitors. She figured there was no better place to see someone's true colors than from behind the wheel. She'd also say, "Keep an open mind, 想得开一点," meaning don't sweat the small stuff. Wonderful words of advice and something all of us are trying with all of our might to master each and every day. My sisters and I often compare physical features and behaviors to see